He was just the quiet kid. Until the day they made him prove it. Nobody really noticed Micah Bennett. He sat 3 rows back near the far side of the classroom at Pine Hollow Middle School in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. Always quiet, always on time, always doing his work without drawing attention. He wasn't shy exactly, but he wasn't loud either. Just careful. Like someone who had learned early on that being noticed didn't always mean good things. Every day during homeroom, Micah would pull out a black notebook. Edges worn, pages filled with neat rows of notes, sketches, and sometimes what looked like music lines. No one ever asked about it. No one ever cared. Except Ms. Daphne Reynolds. She was the kind of teacher who believed in structure, in discipline, in order. 20 years in middle school classrooms had taught her 2 things. 1, never underestimate how fast kids can turn on you. And 2, there's always a kid who tries to coast under the radar. To her, Micah was that kid. She didn't yell, she didn't humiliate outright, but the message was always there, tucked behind clipped words and a watchful eye. I'm watching you. Still, Micah didn't react, until the day she made him. That morning started like any other. The hallway buzzed with the sounds of sneakers squeaking against polished tile, backpacks swinging from shoulders, and half-finished conversations echoing through the lockers. Micah walked with his head down, earbuds in, moving like a ghost through the chaos. When he entered room 207, he slid into his seat, pulled out his notebook, and resumed his usual routine, jotting down notes from memory, practicing mental scales, sketching out chord progressions only he understood. The classroom filled slowly. Laughter, talking. Someone dropped a water bottle. A crumpled worksheet flew through the air and landed 2 seats over. Micah stayed focused. Ms. Reynolds stepped in at exactly 8:02. Not a minute earlier, not a second later. Her heels tapped across the tile as she placed her binder on the desk with a thud. Settle down, everyone. The chatter lowered, but not because anyone feared her. More like everyone just knew better than to push it. Ms. Reynolds was the type who wouldn't scream. She'd just make you stay an extra 15 minutes after school for our reflective writing. Micah kept his eyes down. He didn't notice her glance his way, didn't see the tight smile she wore, didn't catch the flicker of something behind her eyes, because today wasn't going to be normal. Ms. Reynolds walked to the whiteboard and started scribbling out the day's agenda. Vocabulary quiz, grammar drills, peer editing, typical, dry, safe. Then she paused, marker still pressed to the board. Her eyes swept the room like a radar until they stopped on Micah. "Mr. Bennett," she said, not looking at him. The room froze. Micah looked up. "Yes, ma'am." "I noticed you've been writing in that black notebook all week." Her voice was calm, measured almost, but something in the air shifted. "Since you're so inspired, why don't you share what's in it with the class?" Heads turned. Whispers sparked. A few kids smirked. Micah blinked. I'd rather not." Ms. Reynolds turned, one eyebrow raised. "Oh, I'm sure you'd rather not. But I think it's time you contribute something more than silence." Silence. You could hear the wall clock ticking. Micah hesitated, gripping the edge of his desk. His fingers curled into fists. But then he relaxed, as if forcing the moment to pass through him. He closed the notebook, tucked it into his backpack. "I'll pass," he said softly. Wrong move. Ms. Reynolds crossed her arms. "Mr. Bennett, let me be clear. This isn't optional." And that's when it happened. That tiny flicker, that shift in the atmosphere. Micah didn't raise his voice, didn't shout, didn't curse. He just looked up, and his eyes, normally soft, distracted, floating somewhere far away, locked onto hers, with the cold stillness of a pond seconds before a storm. "I said I'll pass," he repeated, more firmly. Ms. Reynolds stepped forward. "Then you can join me after school." Detention. Gasps from the back. Someone whispered, "Damn." But Micah didn't flinch. He just looked away again, quietly, calmly, and stared out the window like none of it mattered. Like she didn't matter. Like we didn't matter. That's when people started to notice something in Micah Bennett had shifted. By the time lunch rolled around, the story had already spread. Micah, the quiet kid, gave Ms. Reynolds attitude. Nobody had ever seen that before. And middle school kids, they're vultures when it comes to drama. Within an hour, whispers turned into legends. Some said he cursed her out. Others said he threw a chair. One kid swore Micah stood up and said, "You'll regret this?" None of it was true. Micah had just said no. But that didn't matter. The damage was done. The narrative had been planted, and Micah knew it. He sat alone at lunch, same as always, tray untouched, headphones in, eyes fixed on something far away, something no one else could see. Then something strange happened. He opened the black notebook and tore a page out, then another and another. He crumpled them, one by one, tight little wads of frustration, and stuffed them into his jacket pocket. Detention was quiet that day. Just Ms. Reynolds, Micah, a clock, ticking louder than it needed to. She didn't say much, just handed him a sheet of lined paper and said, "Write me a reflection. 500 words. On respect." Micah didn't touch the pen. She watched him for 5 full minutes, then stood and walked to the supply closet, leaving him alone at the desk. That's when he reached into his jacket, pulled out the crumpled pages. One by one, he unwrapped them. Not lyrics, not stories, blueprints, sketches of what looked like the classroom layout, the school hallways, camera placements, exit doors, timetables, each page more detailed than the last. Micah looked at them quietly, then folded them back up, slowly, methodically, deliberately. Ms. Reynolds returned and glanced at the desk, but the papers were gone. "Still haven't written anything?" Micah looked up, and for the first time that day, he smiled. It wasn't a kind smile. It wasn't happy. It was the kind of smile that made your stomach knot without knowing why. "Don't worry," he said. "You'll read my words soon enough." The next morning, everything felt off. The halls weren't louder than usual, but the energy had changed. The kind of change you don't notice until someone points it out. Kids moved in tighter groups. Teachers lingered in doorways a little longer. And the usual morning announcements? Canceled. Technical issues, the office said. Micah arrived late, as usual, but this time, when he walked through the front doors, 3 people noticed: the security guard, the assistant principal, and Ms. Reynolds. They didn't say anything, just watched. Micah didn't speak to anyone, just walked down the hall with that same dead stare, earbuds in, black hoodie up. But if you were paying close enough attention, you'd see something tucked under his arm, his notebook. But it was no longer black. It had been spray-painted red. Period 2, history class. Mr. Foster tried to ignore the way the room buzzed with quiet murmurs, but even he couldn't pretend not to notice Micah. He sat in the back, notebook closed, eyes wide open, staring ahead, not blinking. He didn't take notes, didn't speak, didn't even look at the board. And when Mr. Foster asked a question about the Cold War, Micah said something that made the entire room fall silent. Fear makes people predictable. That's all he said. Just that. Then he smiled. By period 4, rumors had spread again. Micah's got a hit list. Micah hacked the school cameras. Micah's planning something. None of it was confirmed. No proof, no screenshots, just words flying down hallways faster than facts ever could. Kids whispered in bathrooms. Teachers held hushed meetings during planning periods. And the principal? He called Micah into the office for a routine check-in. Micah sat across from the principal, legs crossed, notebook in his lap. The principal, Mr. Dorsey, cleared his throat. "Micah, some of your teachers have raised concerns." "About what?" Micah asked, voice calm. "Your behavior, your drawings, that incident in Ms. Reynolds' class." "I didn't do anything wrong." "That's not what I'm saying. But perception matters, and some of your classmates are feeling uneasy." Micah looked at him for a long time, then opened the notebook. Just one page. He slid it across the desk. It was a sketch, but not of the school this time. It was a classroom, flames rising behind it, students running, someone, unidentifiable, standing still in the middle of it all. Mr. Dorsey's face paled. "What is this?" "A story," Micah said. "One I'm working on." "This looks like a threat." "It's fiction." Mr. Dorsey stared at him. "Do you understand how this looks?" Micah nodded, then stood up, calm as ever. "People only get scared when they see the ending," he said. "But the beginning, they ignore that part." And with that, he walked out. No detention, no suspension, no call home, because nobody knew what he'd actually done. Not yet. By the end of the day, 2 more things happened. First, Ms. Reynolds' car was found in the parking lot, tires slashed, no cameras caught anything, no fingerprints, but inside the windshield, someone had left a single page from Micah's notebook. It read, "This is page 1. Second, the fire alarm went off during 7th period. Students filed out, thinking it was just a drill. But someone had triggered it from the 2nd floor, where no classes were held that hour, where the cameras conveniently glitched. The school day ended in chaos. And Micah? He walked home slowly, notebook under his arm, that same look in his eye, the one that said, "Everything is going according to plan." All right, now things start twisting tighter. The line between fear and reality is blurring, and everyone's wondering if Micah's just disturbed or dangerous. Here comes the next part. Thursday, 7:04 a.m. School hadn't even opened its doors yet when the janitor found it. A message, spray painted across the front walkway in red, "The bell doesn't save you." No cameras caught it, no witnesses, just 7 chilling words staring up at every kid who walked in. Micah arrived last. Again. He saw the words, smirked, and kept walking. In the teacher's lounge, panic started to boil over. Who else could have done it? You've seen his notebook. That boy needs help. No, he needs to be gone. But the truth was, no one had evidence, just fear. And that fear was a virus, spreading fast. By lunch, another rumor exploded. Someone claimed they saw Micah whispering to a group of seniors under the bleachers, said he handed them envelopes. "Plans," they whispered. "Instructions." Someone else said he had blueprints of the school in his locker. No one knew for sure. But by 5th period, the cops were on campus. Officer Bennett stood over 6 feet tall, built like he played college football. He didn't smile, didn't make jokes. He walked into Ms. Reynolds' class just as the final bell rang. "Micah Woods?" Heads turned. Micah didn't move. Bennett stepped closer. "I need you to come with me." Micah stood up without a word, closed his red notebook, and followed him. Not a single student dared say a thing. The interrogation room. It wasn't exactly like in the movies. No cold metal table, no one-way glass. Just Micah, Officer Bennett, and an assistant principal sitting stiffly in the corner, trying to keep up. Bennett flipped open a folder. "Do you know why you're here?" "No." "You've been drawing violent scenes, talking about fear, leaving notes. They're stories. They're warnings." Micah leaned forward, eyes locked on Bennett's. "Warnings about what?" "You tell me." Micah smiled, slow, unsettling. "Maybe they're not warnings. Maybe they're predictions." Silence. Then Bennett asked, "Did you paint that message this morning?" "No." "But you know who did." Micah's smile vanished. He whispered, "You're asking the wrong question." Bennett blinked. "What should I be asking?" Micah leaned in close. "When?" The school went into a soft lockdown that afternoon. They didn't say Micah's name, didn't tell the students why, just an announcement: all students are to remain in classrooms. Doors locked, no hallway passes. But the students knew, and by 3:15 p.m., Micah was released. No charges, no evidence, no confession. Just one student walking out of the office, red notebook in hand, head high. On his way out, he passed Ms. Reynolds, paused, and whispered, "Chapter 2 starts tomorrow." That night, Micah didn't go home, at least not straight home. A neighbor later reported seeing him at the edge of the school grounds just after 10 p.m., just standing there, looking at the building, holding something, a backpack maybe, or a box. They couldn't tell. By the time they looked again, he was gone. And the next morning, something happened that no one was prepared for, something that confirmed everyone's worst fears. Here we go. Chapter 2 begins. The school's on edge, everyone's watching Micah, but no one's ready for what's coming next. Friday, 6:17 a.m. The sun hadn't risen yet, but Mr. Halberd, the chemistry teacher, was already in his lab. He liked the quiet, used it to prep his lessons before the chaos. But as he unlocked the door to his room, something was off. The air smelled sharp, like metal and ozone, and something was on his whiteboard, written in thick black marker, "Formulas are fun, but boom is better." He backed out of the room immediately, called the office. Within minutes, the school was in full lockdown. Students were diverted to the gym, parents were calling in nonstop, bomb squad was on the way, and somewhere inside all that panic, Micah was sitting calmly on the bleachers, notebook in hand. He was sketching something, a new chapter. Nobody dared sit near him, even teachers avoided his eyes. The bomb squad found nothing. No explosives, no suspicious devices, but the message was clear. Someone wanted them afraid, and they were. By midday, the school board had an emergency meeting. They couldn't expel Micah, not without hard evidence. They couldn't silence him. He wasn't breaking any laws, but the pressure from parents, media, and terrified staff, it was mounting. And all the while, Micah just kept writing, drawing, waiting. That night, something else happened, something not even Micah could explain. Around 11:40 p.m., the school's fire alarm system activated. Not a drill, real alarms, real flashing lights. Fire crews rushed in, but there was no fire, just smoke. Coming from the auditorium, when they broke in, they found it. A pile of burned paper, still smoldering on the stage, pages from books, torn out diary entries, and one single object in the middle of the ashes, Micah's red notebook, burned almost completely, almost, because one page had survived, and scrawled across it in jagged black ink, "The show begins Monday." Saturday, 2:30 p.m. Ms. Reynolds was driving when she got the call. It was Officer Bennett. "Lock your doors," he said. She asked why. He didn't answer, just repeated it twice, then hung up. Micah hadn't been seen since Friday afternoon. Not at home, not around town, not online. His parents filed a missing persons report by Saturday night, but some people whispered he wasn't missing at all. He was preparing, writing his final chapter, and come Monday, it'd be more than just words. Monday, 7:59 a.m. 1 minute before the bell. The parking lot was packed. Students moved slow, cautious. Some didn't come at all. Others came with parents who waited in their cars. Everyone was waiting for something. Then, a sound, metal scraping, from the top of the school. Heads turned. A figure stood on the roof, slim, hooded, holding something, a megaphone. He lifted it to his mouth, then he spoke, and what he said sent shockwaves through the school. All right, we're diving straight into the moment. Everything's been leading up to this. What Micah says will change everything. Monday, 8 a.m. The bell rang, but no one moved, because all eyes were on the figure on the roof, Micah. No doubt now, it was him. He pulled back his hood, looked calm, almost serene. Then he spoke through the megaphone. His voice was clear, steady. "You all wanted a villain, so I gave you one." A hush fell over the entire schoolyard. Even the teachers froze. Micah continued. "For months, you whispered, stared, judged. You turned tragedy into gossip. You made my life your favorite horror story. But this This next part, you don't get to control. This is my story now." Then he held something up. Not a gun, not a bomb, a phone, and tapped a button. Within seconds, every student's phone buzzed. A new notification, airdropped from an anonymous sender. Everyone opened it, and what they saw made blood drain from their faces. It was a video, grainy, but clear enough. The school's counselor's office, footage from inside, a private meeting between Ms. Reynolds and the principal. Voices recorded, and what they were saying? It was a bombshell. Micah should have been pulled out months ago. We ignored the warnings. After his sister, "If this explodes, we'll all be liable." They had known. They had predicted something might happen, and they did nothing. They swept it under the rug. Micah didn't need to attack them. He just needed them to destroy themselves. And now, the whole school knew. Panic erupted. Students started shouting. Teachers grabbed phones. Security ran toward the building, but Micah was already gone, vanished from the roof, as if he'd never been there at all. By noon, the school board was in crisis. The video had already gone viral. Local news picked it up, then national outlets. A public statement was issued, but it was too late. Micah's message had landed, and now people were listening. But the question no one could answer was, where was he? And worse, what comes next? Tuesday, 3:17 a.m. A janitor doing rounds found something taped to the main entrance doors. A single sheet of paper, folded neatly. On the outside, Chapter 3. Inside, the real story doesn't end until everyone's secrets are out. Let's keep the suspense alive. This is the moment the town begins to fracture. Tuesday, 8:12 a.m. Town Hall. The mayor sat frozen, clutching the paper the janitor turned in just hours earlier. Chapter 3, it read, but it wasn't just a threat. It was a promise. And it wasn't directed at the students anymore. It was aimed at the entire town, because Micah had stopped playing by their rules. By noon, 2 more videos dropped. Anonymous uploads, same watermark. This time, they weren't school footage. They were from private homes. One showed a prominent police officer, Detective Graham, arguing violently with someone off-screen. A woman's voice, his wife's, slurred, scared. "If they find out what you did to that boy..." "Shut up," Graham snapped. "You think I care? I buried that file for a reason." The video cut, then the second clip started. It was darker, audio only. A therapist, Dr. Lesnar, on a call. "If Micah ever talks, I'll lose my license. Maybe worse. We promised to monitor him, not medicate him." More buzz, more panic. Now it wasn't just about the school anymore. This was systemic. Micah was peeling back the layers one by one, and the people who'd kept him quiet were about to have their lives exposed. Tuesday, 7:30 p.m. Location unknown. Micah sat in the shadows, watching the chaos unfold on a burner laptop. His fingers moved over the keyboard. He opened a document labeled Chapter 4. Then he added a name to the list. Riley Emerson, the girl who started the rumors, the one who laughed the loudest after his sister died, the one who posted fake screenshots. She thought it was over, but Micah remembered, and he never forgot. Wednesday, 10:02 a.m. Riley arrived at school to find her locker wide open. Inside, a single sheet of paper, folded in the exact same way as the others, but this one wasn't typed. It was handwritten. "You know what you did? So do I." Taped underneath it was a flash drive. She didn't open it right away, not until she got home. And when she did, she screamed because the video on that drive was from her own bedroom. Wednesday, 10:37 p.m. Riley's bedroom, lights off, curtains pulled. Riley sat curled on the floor, her knees pressed to her chest. The flash drive still glowed in the USB port of her laptop, casting a pale blue hue across her face. She couldn't stop watching the video. It was her, lying in bed, sleeping, The footage was grainy, like it was shot through a small lens. Maybe a camera hidden inside something. A stuffed animal, a vent, and then a shadow moved into frame. Not Micah, someone else, taller, heavier, wearing gloves. He stood at the foot of her bed for exactly 4 minutes. Then he walked away. She didn't remember anything. Not that night, not the feeling of being watched, but someone had been there, and Micah had the proof. Same night, across town. Detective Graham stared at his phone as a news alert popped up. FBI joins investigation into Wakefield High scandal. He tossed the phone across the room, because Graham knew the FBI wouldn't stop at school files. They'd dig up everything, and if they found the buried report from 2 years ago, the one about Micah's little sister, they'd learn what Graham had done, what he'd ignored, what he'd helped cover up. He poured a glass of whiskey and looked out his window. Headlights flashed outside. A black car, no license plate, parked across the street, watching, waiting. Thursday, 5:12 a.m. Back to Riley. She hadn't slept. The video haunted her. She called her mom, who was in Miami on business. No answer. Then she did something she hadn't done in years. She called him. Hello? The voice was cautious, familiar. Ethan? It's Riley. I need your help. There was a pause, then a sigh. You shouldn't be calling me, not after what you did. Riley was already crying. It's about Micah. Ethan Keller, 17th, former Wakefield student, expelled junior year after a violent altercation in the science lab. Most kids thought he transferred. Some said he went to juvie. The truth? He disappeared until now. Thursday, 3:30 p.m. Wakefield Public Library, basement level. Riley met Ethan beneath the old archives room. No cameras, no security, just dust and decades-old school records. What did Micah send you? Ethan asked. Riley handed him the flash drive. He didn't flinch. He'd seen worse. Why would he film me? Why now? Riley asked. Ethan took a long breath. He's not just exposing people, he said. He's recreating what they did to his sister. Riley blinked. What? Ethan looked her dead in the eyes. Micah's not just after revenge. He's reenacting the night she died, scene by scene. What really happened to Micah's sister? And how is Riley connected? Absolutely. Here's the continuation leading to a powerful, emotional, and motivational ending. Thursday, 4:02 p.m., Wakefield Library, basement level. Riley gripped the edge of the table. Her heart pounded. What do you mean, reenacting? She whispered. Ethan slid a yellowed file across the table. A police report. Date, April 12th, 2 years ago. Victim, Emily Reyes, Micah's younger sister. Found unconscious behind the gymnasium. Signs of struggle, no witnesses. School security cameras had been wiped. The case had quietly been closed, ruled as accidental trauma. No charges filed. Riley felt like she'd been punched in the gut. She remembered that week. Rumors flew around school. But no one knew the truth. No one cared enough to find out. Except Micah. Ethan pointed to a faded list of names in the report's notes. Name number 3, Riley Matthews. Her hand trembled. I don't remember being part of anything, she said, voice cracking. I was just at that party. I didn't even know Emily was there. You were a bystander, Ethan said softly. But you were there. That's why Micah's targeting you. Riley turned away in shame. All the anonymous videos Micah had leaked. He wasn't just exposing crimes. He was showing how everyone who stayed silent had played a role. Ethan stood. I know what it's like to be thrown away. People turned their backs on me, too. But I found a way to fight back that didn't destroy me. Riley looked up, confused. Ethan smiled faintly. I started helping others. Kids like Emily. Kids like us. That's why I came back. Thursday, 6:17 p.m. Wakefield High, rooftop. Riley stood at the edge of the rooftop with her phone in hand. She'd spent the last 2 hours making calls, gathering students. Micah had sent one final video scheduled to go live at midnight, but not if she stopped it. She pressed record and looked straight into the camera. "My name is Riley Matthews. I've been silent for too long. I stood by while people were hurt, and I let fear control me. No more. I'm not here to expose anyone. I'm here to take responsibility and to help rebuild what we let fall apart." The video went viral within hours. Friday morning, 10 a.m. Micah walked into the school office and turned himself in. He'd seen Riley's message, and for the first time his anger didn't feel like the only way forward. He handed over his flash drives, emails, and passwords to everything he had, not to protect himself, but to give Emily the justice she was denied. 6 months later, Wakefield High, Community Auditorium. The school had changed. A new task force on student safety, mandatory reporting training for teachers, anonymous peer-led mental health programs, and most importantly, student accountability panels. Riley stood at the podium during the Wakefield Youth Summit. Her voice was steady now. "We can't change the past, but we can face it. And when we do that together, without fear, without blame, we become something stronger than what tried to break us." Ethan sat in the front row. Beside him, Micah, now part of the reform program that helped dozens of other students come forward. Behind them, the auditorium filled with parents, teachers, and students, listening, learning, healing. And Riley? She didn't just rewrite her story. She became the author of a new chapter for everyone who had once felt invisible, unheard, or broken. Because sometimes the hardest stories are the ones that lead to the greatest change. And that change starts when just one person stands up and says, "No more."